So we are going to start a new session. This is basically on Sutta study, kind of a Sutta teaching kind of a session. So this will be going on every Wednesday and 7 a.m. in Sri Lanka time, and this is a new session. So if you have any suggestions, or I will allow you to give your suggestions maybe at the end of this discussion. And we will be taking some suttas which is more relevant for our practice. So basically the idea of this session is to get some guidance from the sutta, because as you know, in our practice it is necessary to get some guidance from Buddha's teaching. There are 5 ways that Buddha mentions that we need to get the support. First of all, we need to have sila, that is the sila anuggahita, where we need some kind of morality within ourselves. We have to restrain ourselves so that we are guiding or guarding our body and the speech. So that way we need to support ourselves. That is quite important, because otherwise we may get distracted, our whole behavior get distracted. So we have to therefore get proper guided by the sila, because it is quite difficult to immediately do some kind of mental development unless we have some amount of physical restraint. Therefore, Buddha recommends us to have ourselves established in sila, morality, that help us to further improve our mental clarity. Now, after that, Buddha explains that we need to support ourselves from his teaching, that is the Sutta Anuggahita, and as a part of that, we are conducting this session. Because when Buddha instructs, he's seeing the whole picture. Sometimes when we see something, we are seeing certain things partially, according to our own sort of likes and dislikes. So therefore, it is quite important to get some guidance from the Buddha's teaching, and then we have some sort of a better understanding. Because our understanding, as I said, is more we can say like partial or not complete, because we are dealing with certain amount of defilements. So our view is always defiled, our view is always distorted. So there is some sort of a perversion happens in ourselves. So therefore, having some teaching, some guidance from Buddha's Dhamma, this teaching is quite important. So this is why we are taking this session. And other than these 2 methods, Buddha explains that we need to discuss. This is also part of this session, because when we are dealing with a particular sutta, or kind of a teaching, kind of an advice, we might or might not understand it, or sometimes we might misunderstand it. So if such doubts are there, we need to clarify those doubts. And as a result, Buddha recommends us to discuss, maybe with Kalyana Mittas, maybe with some people who are going in the same direction. So we have to select such a group. Otherwise, if we are trying to discuss with some people who are not in the same track, on the same path, we also might get discouraged. So therefore, it is quite interesting or quite important to select a suitable group, and within that group we can discuss. Then others also can contribute, and we are in a good position to remove any of the doubts we have. And that is the Sakacca Anuggahita, where Buddha recommends that time to time we have to deal with certain discussions. And then, of course, our minds are typically distracted, scattered, and we need to collect that distracted mind, that scattered mind. So collecting our scattered mind, distracted mind, is part of the practice. And that is what we do through Samatha Anuggahita, or collecting ourselves, collecting our minds using certain amount of practice. It may be Samatha practice as well as Vipassana practice. Typically, this is more prominent in Samatha practice. So there we are selecting a certain object, and again we are applying our mind to that, and we are trying to focus our attention on a particular subject, more kind of a wholesome subject, wholesome object. And to that we are again and again applying our attention, and as a result our mind get concentrated. So this concentration is in a way kind of a prerequisite for our wisdom development. So that is the last Anuggahita, last support. Buddha mentions that is as the Vipassana Anuggahita, where we need to support ourselves by developing wisdom. So this wisdom is not really the wisdom or kind of knowledge that we know about in mundane activities. We may have a lot of say subjects, lot of libraries, universities, and a lot of knowledge is available. If you go to the internet, you can see within a couple of seconds you can get a lot of information available. But here the Vipassana related wisdom is something else, where we need to have it by our own. Buddha is guiding us, but we ourselves have to develop it. It may not happen by itself, but we have to prepare the conducive environment for that to happen. So all the previous supports are actually helping this to happen. Say for example, when we have Sila Anuggahita, that is where when we are having some amount of morality, that is actually contributing towards the wisdom. And when we have Sutta Anuggahita, that is when we are studying the Buddha's teaching, listening the Buddha's teaching, so that also contributing towards the wisdom. And when we have discussions, that is Sakacca Anuggahita, that also clarifies any kind of doubts we have, and as a result, that also contributing towards the wisdom. And when we have a concentrated mind, samahita chitta, well collected mind, then we can see the real phenomena in a more clear way. Otherwise, with a scattered mind, it is quite difficult to look at certain things, look at whatever the real phenomena or arising phenomena at this present moment. So, in order to see that arising phenomena in the present moment, we need to have a very clear focused mind, focused attention. So that is therefore as a prerequisite to development of the wisdom. So therefore we can say all those four previous Anuggahita supports are contributing towards the wisdom. And actually they have some sort of an interrelationship. It is not in a way a kind of a linear relationship, but they all are contributing each other. Now, having said that, I like to take one sutta today for our discussion. And I have selected one important sutta from Majjhima Nikaya as a starting point. So this sutta is the second sutta available in Majjhima Nikaya. You know that according to Buddha's sort of dispensation, his preaching now later at the after his passing away, his whole teaching is divided into several sections for our easy understanding, for our easy remembering. Now Majjhima Nikaya actually has 151 suttas, and among them the second sutta is the Sabbasava Sutta. So before coming to asavas, I would like to mention a little information about the various levels of defilements we have. So basically, if we consider our minds, so suppose you come across someone whom you don't like, probably you might immediately even sort of even blame that person. or you might even hit that person. Suppose he's not a person that you really like and someone who did something bad for you. So you got really angry and immediately you couldn't control yourself, and you might even hit the person, or you might even blame the person. So this level is we sometimes call as vitikkama, or we are transgressing. So at this point actually we are breaking the precepts. The first precept, as you know, Panadipata Veramani Sikkhapadan Samadhiyami, basically indicates that we are having sort of a very innocent kind of life. We are having a life which is more guided with compassionate mindset. But when we are blaming someone, when we are hitting someone, attacking someone, so we might lose this compassionate attitude, sympathetic attitude, and as a result we actually are breaking the precepts. So this transgression level is in a way the more aggressive and more evident kind of level, and that is not difficult to understand. Nowadays in the whole world, people are fighting each other. They are going into various arguments, quarrels, and this is not uncommon. This is very common, and we can understand that. So in order to restrain this level, this transgression level, actually we can get a lot of support through the sila, through the restraint, through the morality. Because when we actually understand the value of morality, value of sila, then we can use it as a kind of a determination. Say if I am determining that I will never kill an animal, so that becomes kind of a vow, kind of a determination. So we can try to abide with that determination. So as a result, even if I come across certain animals or whoever that I might even kill, because of our determination, we might not do it, because we understand then if I go through or if I continue hitting this animal, then it might die. So it might cause to break the precept. So therefore I am losing my determination. I am breaking the determination. So I am now restraining myself. I am now making use of the morality, the precept. So as a result, I can avoid the transgression. So as you can understand, so we can use morality in order to tackle this transgression level of defilements. Vitikkama kilesa. So the vitikkama part, the transgression part, can be avoided using the precepts, using the morality part, sila part. On the other hand, even though we can understand that, but still we get angry, still we get unhappy, still we get various other defilements to our mind. So mind is still not pure. So mind may get defiled again and again, but we may not getting into any argument, we may not getting into any sort of transgression because we are using the precepts. But still the mind get defiled. So this defiled level of mind is what we call as pariyutthana keles, or the kind of obsessive level of defilements. So defilements are there in the mind, but we haven't implemented them using our words, speech, or even using the body. So we are restraining the body and the speech using the sila, but still the mind get defiled, and this mind defiled because of the various surfaced defilements. So this also can be tackled, this also can be answered using meditation. That is the samadhi, that where we can do some amount of practice, some amount of samatha meditation, concentration practice, and as a result, our mind also can become somewhat calmed down. So this calming down, of course, is temporary. So that is the issue. So we can temporarily calm down our defilements, and as a result, mind becomes somewhat pure, somewhat calm, tranquil, but it may not last forever. It may last only for a short period till our power of concentration is available. Till our samadhi is good, these defilements may not be available. Once we remove our concentration power, so once we remove this practice, once we avoid the practice, or if we couldn't practice for a while, then again the defilements come to the surface. So therefore we can understand, even though the samadhi concentration practice actually helps to calm down ourselves, so that too is not permanent. That too is still haven't answered the whole question. Now, why these are even we can experience some temporary relief, why are they coming again and again? Why aren't they leave forever? So that is a question to answer. So this is the question that Buddha very beautifully answered and very strategically answered, and he found there's another hidden layer of defilements. So that is what we call as anusaya kilesa, or we have some amount of underlying tendencies in our mind. So we are in a way pre-programmed. So even though we think that I am the one sort of doing something, I am the one selecting something, this is my choice, this is my decision. So that decision, that behavior, that choice actually being governed by our latent tendencies, underlying tendencies. So unless we can eradicate or uproot that underlying tendencies, we cannot be completely free. So that is a very important side that Buddha is answering. So actually, Buddha is the only person who has gone to that depth. Most of the other teachers have simply seen the surface level, that is the obsession type of defilements, the pariyuttana level, and as well as the vitikkama, transgression level. Actually, those two levels are easy to understand. But for one to understand the underlying or hidden layer, that needs fair amount of clarity of mind, fair amount of practice, and that is one of the important teaching of the Buddha. So in this Sabbasava Sutta, basically Buddha is explaining various strategies how to eradicate that latent tendencies. Now, latent tendencies and the asavas, sometimes we call as influxes, have a very good relationship. And we'll deal with that as we go on in this discussion. So, asavas and the anusayas are, we can say, very much going hand in hand. They support each other. So they are actually in the most deepest layer in our mind. So they are very much hidden. So we don't know. We can't immediately understand them. So in order to understand them, we have to have fair amount of practice. Because if we are immediately trying to access that and eradicate that, it is not practical. You can learn these things, you can hear these things, you can think about them, but still they will stay there. They will stay in the most deeper hidden layers of the mind, because typical surface level understanding is not enough to eradicate them. So this is one of the important things to understand. We may have a lot of knowledge, we may have a lot of understanding about the teaching, but still, if we are not practicing, if we are not practically dealing with our mind, and we are not observing the mind again and again, then it might not be easy to reveal these inner tendencies, these inner underlying habits or mental patterns available in the mind. So we therefore can say we are like kind of puppets acting according to those underlying tendencies, behaving according to those hidden tendencies. So unless we are able to correct those tendencies or to reprogram those tendencies, then we are till that we are in a way kind of a victim about our own habits, victim of our own tendencies, of our own old mental patterns. So in this sutta, Buddha says that now he is going to preach about strategies how to deal with these tendencies, how to deal with these influxes. Now, influxes, asava, have kind of meanings. Asavantiti asava. So that means coming out. It's kind of an outflow. So it is deeply rooted in our mind, and they are actually conditioning the operation of the mind. They are governing the complete behavior of the mind. They are very much like hidden in the most deepest layers in our mind, and therefore they are coming out. So in that sense, they are called asava. Asavantiti asava. They are kind of an outflow. So it's internally it is available and it is now coming out. As a result, the mind get conditioned, mind get tormented, mind get defiled. And on the other hand, there is another definition, that is, as you know, if you are taking certain liquids and if you add certain other material to it, you can actually ferment it. This is how we are distilling. The whole distilling process is going through like this. So once we ferment it, then there's a kind of a different type of liquid can be taken out. It is not the original one. So as a result of this long process, distilling process, fermenting process, there's a new substance getting created just because of keeping it for a quite long time. So as you can understand, when we are keeping actually this is applied in Ayurveda medicine, say for example. So they collect various substances, various medicines, and put a lot of other liquids as well, and then keep it for a long time. And you might have heard the same name is available, asava. Asava is another type of a decoction where various substances are added together, mixed together, and kept for a long time. And as a result, it gets a very medicinal value. Medicinal effect is there. Now, with that sense, defilements are also operating. Now, it is not in this single life that we are operating in this way, but for many lives, we are doing the same thing again and again. So these defilements, therefore, are living in our mind for a longer time. As a result, mind get conditioned according to them. As a result, mind is colored according to them. Now mind is operating according to them. And even if we wish that I want to operate in a different way, I want to behave in a different way, I want to act in a different way, it's still quite difficult, because that rooted tendencies, rooted mental patterns are trying to control our whole behavior. Rooted tendencies are trying to victimize ourselves, to influence our operation, influence our behavior. So therefore, these are called asava. Now you can understand this is a kind of a very philosophical term in one sense, and on the other hand, that is one important aspect that we have to deal with through our practice. Now, in the Buddha's teaching, there are 4 asavas typically Buddha explains, and in this sutta, 3 asavas are explained. Now, the first asava is called kama asava, the desire towards sensual activities. Say, just it's not difficult to understand. Say, very much like we have a desire to see beautiful pictures. beautiful sceneries. We have a desire to hear music. We like to hear good words. We like to hear beautiful songs. And we like to sense some good essence, good incense or good odors. And we like to taste delicious food. And we like to have some good sensations. And these 5 types of sensual objects are sometimes we call as Panchakama Guna, 5 types of different sense stimuli. And this is some sort of a deeply rooted desire we have. We always like as human beings, and we like to hear beautiful music. We like to hear good words, and we like to see beautiful sceneries. And likewise, we can understand. So this sense desire is something deeply rooted. Kamasana. And that is the main government factor in the typical whole world. The whole world is going after these five sensual stimuli. Some people are going after movies, various magazines, various beautiful sceneries. Yeah, they may travel long distance in order to see something. And similarly, some are going through after music. They may go to see a musical show, and they may spend a lot of money on buying certain recordings, musical CDs and all this stuff. And nowadays we have very improved musical instruments, gadgets, and all this research actually going on in order to gratify the senses. And there are many varieties of foods available, and that is also a very big business. Food chains are there, and different names are available, and different types of food are available. Chinese food, Italian food, Indian food, different things are available, and we like to have them. So we are taking our children, our parents, our siblings, and we are going there and we are enjoying food. So this is kind of a desire we all have, not difficult to understand. And on the other hand, there are various types of incense available, and it's a big business, and you all coming from various countries, you know better than me, and you can understand it's a kind of area that mostly women are interested, and nowadays even men are interested. It's also going on. And again, now we have more improved bodily sensations, contact. And in order to have such contact, we are spending millions. A lot of luxurious vehicles, luxurious beds, and all these things are available. Now, this is the typical pleasure principle we are being operated. It's not that difficult to understand. So, typical pleasure principle on which that most of the people are operating, most of the people are acting, is actually based on this sensual desire. So, this sensual desire is in a way deeply rooted within our mind, and we are being constantly governed by that, constantly influenced by that. And on the other hand, the second asava is called bhavasava, or the desire for being, just a desire to become. We always want to be someone. We always to become someone. We always to continue the existing situation. We always want to live forever, to become sort of an eternal person, eternal something, someone. So likewise, there is a continuous, ongoing, deeply rooted desire in order for the continuous existence. So these are in a way, very subtle levels of desires we have, and according to them we are operating. According to them, we are behaving. And on the other hand, there is the third category, the avijjasava or ignorance. That is what we can actually divide into two, the avijjasava and the ditthasava. That is how it becomes 4 types of asavas, 4 types of influxes. And actually we can include ditthasava into the ignorance. Therefore, in this sutta, Sabbasava Sutta, ditthasava is not mentioned. But how ditthasava arises is mentioned in this sutta. But as a asava, as a taint, as an influx, the name ditthasava is not there. So in this Sabbasava Sutta, therefore 3 main categories of asavas are mentioned. And one another important thing, Buddha says, because I say that the destruction of the taints is for one who knows and sees, not for the one who does not know and see. So this is another important information that Buddha tells at the very beginning of this sutta. Janato aham bhikkhave passato asavanam khayam vadami no ajanato no apassato. What Buddha categorically mentions here is that only for the person who sees, who knows, who understands the operation of these asavas, operation of these taints, for him only I declare uprooting is possible. Abandonment is possible. Destruction is possible. For the ones who can't understand, who cannot see within himself how these asavas, how these influxes are operating, for such person, I can't say that he would be able to eradicate or uproot these taints, these influxes. So you can understand from this statement that how important for ourselves to understand these inner patterns, how important for us to understand these underlying tendencies. Because if we cannot see it within our mind, if we cannot understand the operation within ourselves, then we would never be able to correct it. So this is the main important point here with the very beginning of the sutta highlighting. So therefore we have to clearly understand them. We have to clearly recognize how we being influenced by our own likes and dislikes. Then only we can get a corrective measure. Otherwise we may simply keep on doing it again and again because we haven't seen it. We haven't understood it. So therefore understanding them and restraining them is quite important, and therefore Buddha mentions different strategies to tackle them, to handle them. And the next section Buddha says, who knows and what he sees. So the next section actually deals with kind of an ongoing reflection about our mind. So this is called wise attention, yoniso manasikara. So this yoniso manasikara has to be an ongoing process within ourselves. It's not something that we can practice for today and then abandon tomorrow. It has to be an ongoing reflection. Ongoing vigilance has to be there within ourselves. So therefore Buddha says, so what he knows is decided based on this yoniso manasikara. So if we have yoniso manasikara, wise attention, then we can reveal all these tendencies. Because yoniso manasikara helps us to go deeper, go to the source, go to the origin. Typically, we are in the surface. We simply think, we simply proliferate, we simply ruminate only in the surface level. We are not seeing the big picture, and we are not seeing the roots. We are not seeing the causes. Rather, we are simply operating like a very ignorant person. So, Yoniso Manasikara actually helps us to recognize all these different types of asavas, and all these strategies are well governed, well directed, well guided by Yoniso Manasikara. So, Yoniso Manasikara therefore helps to avoid any unnecessary asavas to arise. And on the other hand, if once we apply Yoniso Manasikara, if there was any kind of already available asava, it might be abandoned. It can be eradicated. It can be removed. On the other hand, the opposite is unwise attention, Ayoniso Manasikara, where if we are not applying the Yoniso Manasikara, instead if we do wrong reflection, if you do wrong way of thinking, then unarisen pains also arise, and arisen pains also increase. So you can see there's a major role in the way of thinking, how we are managing our mind, how we are controlling or applying our mind, how we are thinking, actually helps to either to develop asavas or either to decrease asavas, either to arise asavas or either to avoid the rising of the asavas. So the way of thinking is quite critical. Are we wisely thinking or are we unwisely thinking? Are we guarding our mind or simply allowing it to do whatever it likes and think as it likes? So therefore we have to carefully deal with this subject. Now, in order to facilitate this whole process, now Buddha is coming up with several strategies to handle these asavas, to eradicate these asavas, to control these asavas, influxes, and he is coming up with 7 strategies, 7 ways how to deal with these asavas. So the first one is called Dasana Pahatabba. By seeing, one can eradicate asavas. So this is one category. This is the first one. The second one is Samvara Pahatabba, abandoning by restraining. This is another strategy. Third strategy is Patisevana Pahatabba, using something but very wisely. Using wisely something, you can eradicate asavas, or you can avoid the arising of asavas. And then the fourth, Adivasana Pahatabba, by enduring, be patient, one can eradicate asavas. And fifth, Parivajjana Pahatabba, by avoiding. You are not going even to that direction. You are not associating at all. This is the fifth strategy. Then number 6 is Vinodana Pahatabba. So you are not keeping it in the mind, you are removing it from the mind. That is number 6. Then Bhavana Pahatabba is the last. That is by cultivating the mind, developing the mind. Now, all these 7 are in a way deeper subjects. So we are trying to address these different strategies on different days. So today actually is a kind of an introduction, and I thought of dealing with the first one. So I will therefore go few more minutes in that section, and then I'll open the discussion. And the first strategy is called pains that should be abandoned by saying, Asava Dasana Pahatabba. So this is in a way strictly dealing with Yoniso Manasikara. So Buddha starts with telling about the Asutava Putujjano. Typical Putujjana, the typical worldly person, ordinary person, is not aware of Buddha's teaching, is not aware of the good people. He is not associating any noble people. He is not associating wise people. So that is what the first section is telling. So he is Ariyanam Adassavi. He has never seen a noble person. He has never seen a Sappurisanam Adassavi. So he has no regard on noble people and no regard on good people, true people. Arya Dhammassa Apovido. He is not skilled in the Dhamma. He's not skilled in the teaching. And is also Arya Dhamme Avinito. He is not disciplined according to the teaching. So he's behaving as he likes. And his life is not guarded or guided by the teaching. He is not restrained. And he never associate good people. And in a way, he's just kind of a blind person. So that is why I call Asutava Putujjano. He is very much like an andha, kind of a blind person. He doesn't know that there's this kind of a teaching available, this kind of a guidance available, this kind of a restraint available, this kind of a way of life is available. He has never regard on such things. So therefore, there are major issues for him. So that is actually discussed in the Sutta. So one major problem is that he does not understand what things are fit for attention. He basically doesn't know what is necessary to think. Now you can see this whole Sutta fairly dealing with the thinking in this section particularly. So how are we keeping our attention? What are we thinking? So this Asutava Putujjana, the typical untaught, blind, well, ordinary person, doesn't know what to think. He does not understand what things are fit for attention. Does not understand what is suitable to think. Manasikkaraniye dhamme nappajanati. And on the other hand, he does not understand what things are unfit for attention. Amanasikaraniye dhamme nappajanati. He don't know what is good to think and he don't know what is not good for think. He don't know what is beneficial to think and he don't know what is harmful to think. So since he don't know, then what happens is he does not attend to those things fit for attention. Now, there are good things to think. There are beneficial things to think, ponder, investigate, reflect. Since he don't know, he is not paying attention to them. And on the other hand, there are very harmful things to pay attention. There are various unwise kind of attention is available, and there are unsuitable kind of not suitable subjects to think. Since he don't know about them, since he don't know the consequences, he is now thinking about those subjects. He attends to those things unfit for attention. Now you can understand what kind of a harm happened to this person. So the result is unarisen taints arise and arisen taints increases. So the main outcome is he get more and more confused, more and more entangled, more and more his defilements increase. All those latent tendencies further get strengthened. He gets stuck. And even the arisen defilements, arisen influxes, taints, that becomes more stronger, more and more stronger. So he is basically hinged in this samsara. He's basically trapped in this samsara because he didn't know what to think and he didn't know what not to think. Now he is applying the wrong side, and therefore this whole section is in operation. So what I am indicating through this indicator, through the mouse, is going to operate for an unwise person, or asutava pudujjana, the untaught person. For the blind ordinary person, this section is going to operate. And on the other hand, since he don't know what needs to think, what is beneficial to think, and the other side, that is handling of the defilements, eradicating of the defilements, is not going to happen. So this side is not going to happen for him. There is no connection in this side for the asutava pudujjana, for the ordinary person, because he don't know the strategy. Now, so unwise attention is also explained in this sutta, some deeply impacting, deeply influencing way of unwise attention. So he might think, he might ponder about the past. Was I in the past? Was I not in the past? What was I in the past? How was I in the past? Having been what did I become in the past? Now this is how he is thinking about the past. He is putting a term I, he is putting the term personality view, the self view into his thinking, and now he is thinking more and more about the past. He is reflecting about the past, memorizing about the past, thinking, what was I in the past? Was I in the past? Was I not in the past? How was I in the past? From where did I come to the past? So likewise, he is thinking again and again, thinking, and he get more and more confused. And on the other hand, he is thinking about the future as well. Shall I be in the future? Shall I not be in the future? What shall I be in the future? How shall I be in the future? Having been what shall I become in the future? Now about the future also, he is planning, he is thinking, he is pondering. By putting the personality view, by putting the self view, and as a result, he gets more and more confused. Not only that, about the present, also he is thinking, am I? Am I not? What am I? How am I? Where has this thing come from? Where will it go? Now there are 5 ways of wrong thinking about the past, 5 ways of wrong thinking about the future, and 6 ways of wrong thinking about the present. He gets more and more perplexed, become confused by thinking these 11 ways. And therefore, what is the result? And Buddha says he is coming up or get trapped in 6 types of views. So this is where Buddha explains about, in a way, the influx on views, ditthasava, where this unwise attention, wrong way of thinking, will lead to wrong views, wrong ditti, miccha ditti. So miccha ditti is arising due to this wrong way of thinking. So he thinks now there's a self exists for me. He thinks that there is no self exists for me. And he thinks that I am perceiving a self with the self. And he might think I am perceiving not self with a self. And on the other hand, I am perceiving self with not self. Or he thinks that all these experiences are eternal, there's an eternal self, and using that eternal self, I am experiencing certain things. So Buddha mentions that different views, wrong views, miccha dittis are going to arise because of this way of wrong thinking. And Buddha emphasizes it, telling that this is the thicket of views. This is a wilderness of views. This is a contortion of views. This is a vacillation of views. And this is a fetter of views. Now you can see how detrimental for us to think wrongly. Now, different way of thinking is available, but if we think wrongly, so it will lead to a mass of wrong views. We get entangled, we get confused, and we sometimes get depressed, we get obsessed because of wrong thinking. So therefore you can understand how this operation going to happen. When we don't know what is fit for attention, and when we don't know what is unfit for attention, then we are thinking what is unfit for attention, and we are not thinking what is beneficial. Ultimately, we get more and more confused, more and more entangled, and more influxes get strengthened. So we get trapped in the samsara. So this is the section that I thought of completing today. So in summary, what I have mentioned is I started with giving you an overview of the defilements. What are the 3 layers, 3 levels, telling that we have the vitikkama layer, transgression level. Then we have the obsessive layer, that is pariyuttana level. And then we have the underlying or hidden layer, that is the anusaya level. So in Sabbasava Sutta, actually Buddha is coming up with various strategies to address that hidden layer, the underlying tendencies. So he is telling here about 3 types of taints, and they are kamasava, bhavasava, avijjasava. And in certain suttas, ditthasava is also mentioned, and therefore it ultimately becomes 4 types of asavas. And if we consider the anusayas, they are actually 7. So we'll deal with them also in this discussion later. And then Buddha mentions that it's quite important to know and see how they are operating within our minds. Then only it is possible to correct them. Then only it is possible to uproot them. Otherwise, we will never be able to free ourselves. And then again, he is emphasizing the importance of wise attention, Yorso Manasikara. And then he is coming up with 7 strategies to deal with these taints. And today, actually, I have mainly dealt with the first one, that is abandoned by seeing. And they are, especially I have mentioned about the Asutava Putujjana, and maybe on next time I'll deal with the Sutava Arya Savaka, the one, how one may be thinking when he is well taught, when he is well disciplined, when he is in the correct practice. So with that, actually, I like to stop sharing the screen. Now, if any one of you have any question, so I welcome you to raise your hand, and maybe you can unmute your mic and give your whatever the comment, or if you have any question, you can raise that.
Hello, Bhante.
Yeah.
I received a question very early on about whether you will be able to share the document that you've been walking us through. So that's one of the first questions.
So basically what you're asking is that you want that paper, or is that?
Yeah, I think, yes,
sure.
Exactly.
Yeah, actually I am slowly developing this document. I only have documented the first section. So I'll send it to you so that you can share with others.
Okay, thank you, Bhante.
Yeah.
And going in order, Ananda had submitted a question. His question was, in wise attention, does it mean that being in present moment awareness is important?
Definitely. Present moment awareness is quite important. And it doesn't mean that we cannot think at all. So sometimes we get the misunderstanding, thinking that we should never think. It is not. If it is necessary, we can think, but we have to think properly. We have to think correctly. So this is what Buddha mentions is kind of a mastering of thinking. If you refer Vitakka Santhana Sutta, so there Buddha mentions that various types of thinking is possible, various types of vitakka, thoughts are available, and certain ones are detrimental and certain ones are actually helpful. So we should be able to avoid thinking harmful ways, and still we can think in a beneficial way so that we get the benefit from both sides.
Okay, thank you, Bante.
Thero Saranai Bante. Sorry.
Shaka?
Hi, Thero Saranai Bante.
Yep, go ahead.
Shaka is
I'm sorry. May I speak?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah. බොහොම ස්තුතියි මේ සාකච්ඡාවට මේ පළවෙනි එකේදීම දැන් මේ කියන්නේ abundant by we are speaking in English, I guess, huh? So abundant by seeing, it seems like, because it's mostly highlighting manasikara. So wise manasikara versus avoiding unwise manasikara. It looked like if we actually practice wise manasikara like anicca, dukkha, anatta, asubha, then that also taking care of the rest, like, even getting into the developed last one. So my question is, if we practice, when we practice correct mindfulness by practicing some kind of correct sanya like anicca sanya or anatta sanya, will all these wrong ways can be abandoned?
Yeah, correct. So basically, actually...
Bante, excuse me. My question is also related to the same issue. Bante, I have listened in many sutta preachings that seeing is attaining a Maggapala, the first Maggapala Sotapatti. So I need a clarification on that too.
Yeah, actually...
Thank you, Bante.
So today, actually, because of the time limitation, I didn't go to the Sutta Arya Savaka section. So today, actually, I have given an introduction and then dealt with the wrong ways that the ordinary person is thinking and what are the repercussions, what are the consequences he is getting through. But as you all have mentioned, there are ways of proper way of thinking, proper wise attention, going to the root, going to the source. And all these different strategies are mentioned there. So in the section of this Sabbasava Sutta, which is dealing with the wise attention, Buddha particularly mentioned about the Four Noble Truths. One has to reflect what is suffering and what is the cause of suffering, and what is the cessation of suffering, and what is the way or the method or the path leading to the cessation of suffering. So there is in essence that Buddha is mentioning about wise attention. But more and more one is going through the practice. So this is either using these satya, that is the truth, Four Noble Truths. That is one way of reflection. And as another person has mentioned, more we practice understanding about the impermanence, understanding about the suffering, understanding about the non-self. And all these are actually coming under the wise reflection. So we'll deal with that maybe on next day. Actually, I didn't cover that today. I have only discussed the first part, and actually the Dasana Pahatabba section is not complete yet. I have covered it partially, considering only the unwise attention. But we'll discuss that. We'll discuss the wise attention, which that the taught disciple, Arya Savaka, is practicing. Someone who is really engaged with practice, who is going through wise attention, and we'll deal with that section on next week.
Bante, I believe we have one more question. Do we have time?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Dr. Manuri, can you please unmute? Dr. Manuri?
Yeah, now you can talk, Dr. Manori.
No, I'm not asking. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
No worries. You have your hand raised.
Sorry. Very sorry.
No problem. Well, I think that's all, Bante, in terms of the raised hands for today. And I also made a note to everybody. If you do have additional questions, if we run out of time and don't get to them for whatever reason, you can always email them to me and I will consolidate them and forward them to Bante. And that he will either answer via email or answer it during the next session. So thank you very much, Bante.
Yeah, you're welcome. So we'll discuss further on next week. Thank you very much for participation. So we all, since together, conducted a good discussion and study session. So we'll share merits with everyone. So may you all recite the traditional verses with me. Ettavatacha amhehi sambatang punya sampadang sabbe deva anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhya. Ettavatacha amhehi sambatang punya sampadang sabbe bhuta anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhya. Ettavatacha amhehi sambatang punya sampadang sabbe satta anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhya. Akasattha ca bummatta devanaga mahiddika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakhantu sasanang. Akasattha ca bummatta devanaga mahiddika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakhantu desanang. Akasattha ca bummatta devanaga mahiddika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakhantu mamparang. Idang vo ñātīnaṁ hotu sukitā huntu ñātayo. Idang vo ñātīnaṁ hotu sukitā huntu ñātayo. Idang vo ñātīnaṁ hotu sukitā huntu ñātayo. Imina punya kammena māme bāla samāgamo. Satang samāgamo hotu yāva nibbāna pattiyā. Imina punya kammena māme bāla samāgamo. Satang samāgamo hotu yāva nibbāna pattiyā. Imina punya kammena māme bāla samāgamo. Satang samāgamo hotu yāva nibbāna pattiyā. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Sadhu, sadhu. Thank you, Bante, and thank you everyone for participating today. We will see you again next week during the same day on I guess Wednesday for most of you, or Tuesday evening for those on the East Coast, and at the same time. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bante.
Thero
Thank you, Bante.
Thero Saranai.
Everyone,